Well, we went on the trip because we were invited to go. A man who used to work for my company in our Columbus office went on a short-term mission trip in 2001, and while he was there, he met a Brazilian woman named Alba, and they fell in love, and he went back there and married her, and they are now missionaries in Brazil. So I had started reading their email updates that he would send to our company prayer chain. And I would send him back emails encouraging them and telling them how blessed I was to read about the work that they were doing in Brazil. So in 2010, Steve and Alba came here, and I had never met them, so we went over to the Vineyard Church for a church service, and we met them. And it was that day that Alba said to Bill and I, "You should come to Brazil." Well, I had never seriously thought about going on a missions trip, but I immediately wanted to go. Bill, on the other hand, was a little more hesitant, and he said, if there was a work project, I might be more willing to, think about going on a mission trip. So a couple months later, I emailed Steve, and I asked him, when will there be a work project? Would there be one? And he said, it just so happens that we do have a team coming down next November, and he gave me the numbers of the people to contact at the Vineyard Church. So we prayed, and everything was falling into place. But there was this one day I was on my way to work, and I said, "Lord, do you really want me to go to Brazil?" And when I got to work that day, my manager asked me to sign into an application in order to report. The application I signed into was one that gives you a password periodically. And that day my new password came up, and it was Brazil 11. Thought about things like, what if I got sick over there, or what if the plane didn't make it? It was an awfully long plane ride.
But the team got together for the better part of a year before the trip. We prayed. People who knew us knew that we were going here at Parma Heights. They prayed. Our small group prayed for us. So the whole trip was bathed in a blanket of prayer. So I think that kind of really eased a lot of the fears that may have crept in. And we worked on a house that had been started. It was for a young pastor that was going to move there. The walls were about 3 foot tall when we started. When we finished the house, about 4 days later, the walls were completed up to the roof line, and the interior walls had been built. At the end of the last day, we stopped and we prayed for the pastor, and we prayed over the house, kind of prayed him into his new home. And that was kind of when I really kind of got it. It was good to go there and do the work that we had done, but the reason we were really there was to minister to God's people.
We were going to go on this boat trip for 4 days on the Xingu River, which is a tributary of the Amazon River. Now, the boat we went on was not anything like any boat I had ever been on. We had hammocks, which in Brazil they call hedgies, and they were hung from the ceiling of the boat. So there's 26 people on this rather small boat, and we went along the river and visited 4 churches. I always thought about that there were people in the world who lived in the jungle. I knew that in my head, but when we would pull up to a church on the river and we would see the people walking out of the jungle, it was so amazing to me to see that. The churches were different than the churches in America too. Some had wood floors, some had no floors. And when we were there, a member of our team, we would have a teaching. One person would give a testimony, and then afterward, we would ask the people to come forward for prayer, which was a little tricky because we didn't always have a translator to determine what each person wanted prayer for. So we asked, the Lord to guide us, and we prayed for their needs. At the last church we visited, I gave my testimony about what God had done in my marriage over the last 15 years. God taught me that people everywhere have the same needs. Everybody needs to know God and feel His love. And God also taught me that the people in Brazil seemed to be more joyful. They didn't have very much. They didn't have what we have in America, but I think that because they didn't have so much stuff like we have, they could be closer to God.
He taught me that I can minister to people. I never thought that I had that kind of skill or talent. But he, you know, if I make myself available, he can use me. And then he also revealed to me some prejudice I had in my heart about people that don't really speak English well, or have an accent or don't speak English. Because when we got to Brazil, the tables were turned. I was the guy that couldn't speak the language. We often think, why would I go on a mission trip? I can send money down there, or we have so many problems here in the United States that, we could just stay here. But when you go to another country, you see the differences, the vast differences between our lifestyle and theirs. You see the pictures of people with dirt floors in their houses, but when you walk into one of those houses, it really changes you. It changes the way you look at things. We had times where we had to be careful how much water we were using in a shower. You had to turn the shower on and off as you were in there, and that again, will change you. It changes your perspective. Water isn't something you can just pour out, as much as you want. So, we got a chance to live with the missionaries, for a few days. We got to know them, got to see what they went through on a day-by-day basis. So we know, better how to pray for them. We know, we got a closeness with some of the Brazilian people that we met that you would never get if you sent a check. We've got people. I've got people, faces and names in my head that I can pray for, and they live 4,000 miles away, and I may never see them again in this lifetime, but I can pray for them, and I know that we're all part of the body of Christ. So anybody that's really maybe considering going on a mission trip, I say go. And if you think that maybe you're not mission material like I did, go anyway, and just be open to what God can use you for. I mean, that's what I prayed a lot before we left on this trip was, God, just use me, use me for your glory.